Strike Go edition of our esports breakdown. This is Hold the Door DFS. Yes, I look a little bit different. Shaved off the beard, turned the hat around, changing everything up. You know, just like Draftkings finally figured out that Zaiwu should not be 9,200 anymore. He finally is at 10,200, which I still think he's going to get a lot of ownership, but it might actually reduce that 98% cash game ownership to like 70%. Crims finally gets out of the hole. I've been tweeting about it recently. He's been 7,600 or 7,800 for like the last 7 matches or something like that, regardless of a favorite or an underdog or recent performance or whatever it is. He's just always been such a consistent price tag. So that's kind of how we're going to start this off. Yes, the window is still here that I've had one of my co-owners kind of troll me about. It does not take you anywhere. I just don't have this awesome setup yet, but it is my wife's decor, so I'll tell her that you liked it. But let's jump into the slate, okay? We have three matches again today. We were pretty blessed for the most part today with some really good Counter-Strike. Obviously, the FaZe game was rather disappointing for most people, even though the ownership was extremely high. But the Navi G2 game was really amazing on a lot of individual levels. Unfortunately for me, my head-to-head, which I almost always are playing high-stakes head-to-head if you know me or you know, just want to know how I play. And we came down to the same build with Simple at captain, using Nico, Bemis, and Coldzera. And then I had Hunter, and then it came down, and he had the same exact lineup, except for it came down to he had Electronic, and I had Kenny S. And if you would have told me that G2 swept and Kenny S did not outscore Electronic, I would have been shocked. And that's what happened. Electronic was the best player on the server, most kills out of anybody, and his team lost 2-0. I think that was maybe part of Simple having an off game. You know, a lot of those majority team share kills would have came from Simple in that fact, but just not today. So that was my 1v1 that I lost, and then my lineup was duped up 4 times worth $500. We all had the same showdown lineup, so I guess it was just the crown season and get your rake back in a couple days. But let's move on to our slate for tomorrow. We have Fnatic coming in against Mad Lions. Basically, this is a pick'em. Fnatic just beat Complexity 2-1, while Mad Lions just destroyed Spirit. Spirit hadn't played for a little while, but Mad Lions looked really good. Acor and Bubsky and Sush really just are looking. And I think part of it is Asilian jumping over to the team more recently, becoming their IGL. He's kind of spoken out about that this feels like a better place for him. So I think that does bode well for Mad Lions long term. In a vacuum, I still like the individual talent on Fnatic here in this matchup. But we'll talk about pricing here in a little bit. Next comes to our Team Vitality and NIP matchup, which I feel like we've had, I don't know, 3 times in the last month or so. I remember at Road to Rio, it went, and I'm just going to pull this game up here, but it went to 3 maps. One was double overtime. Zaiwu was horrible at overpass, and then I think Vitality won it in the 3rd round. So they definitely. So let's see. So Vitality beat NIP 2-0 on the 20th of May, and then Vitality beat NIP at the end of Blast on the 7th of May. Of June. Sorry. No, of May. Yeah. No, June. Sorry. That was the most recent one, 2-1. So, and then at Road to Rio, they also beat them 2-1. So it is pretty clear that that NIP has fallen to the Vitality trap here the last 3 or 4 matches. If you look at some of the stats through those games, this is more of a typical stat line I expect when Vitality wins. So the last time they played NIP, it went 3 maps. We had Zaiwu at 70 and 55. and every other player on the team for Zaiwu or for Vitality was a negative kill to death ratio. So I think in matches that they can just completely dominate, I think obviously you're going to get some positive kill to death ratios from some of their secondary players. But I still just never love targeting that second. Maybe is okay with like shocks, but once you get past that, I mean, if it's a non-showdown format where obviously RPK was awesome at Dust 2 last game and really won me a lot of money with the 2-4 kills, the near ace, and the pistol round. But Vitality after Zaiwu, it's just really tough to trust a lot of it. So again, they're minus 180 here. It's just still not my favorite spot. And what's also interesting, so when they just beat them 2-1 recently, listen to this. So Zaiwu was 70-55. NIP, okay, Rez was 66-54. Knock, 59-52. Twist, 58-46. Plopsky, 52-52. Hampus was negative. So 3 of their players had positive kill to death ratios, and those 3 players would have all outscored probably everybody on Vitality except for Zaiwu, and they lost 2-1. But part of that, again, if you remember, Zaiwu was so talented that the other players, if they die, whatever, he can win around, 1-on-2, or they can be down, like a 2-3 man advantage or a 2-4 man advantage, and Zaiwu can bring that back. So just because they're favored here doesn't mean that there's not some fantasy value on the other side of this matchup with NIP. So just take that into consideration. Teams like Navi and Vitality are teams that you can leverage some ownership against them, even if those teams are favored, just because the rest of their team is such a DFS-friendly, happy opponent for kills and things like that. Our last matchup, and this is why it took so long for the slate to get posted with prices today, G2 and Big here. G2 coming in at minus 155. They're going to be the second biggest favorite on the slate, but I think they're actually going to be more popular than Vitality, just based on their players and their prices. So let's hop over Fnatic and Mad Lions. Let's start on the Mad Lions side. There is one player that just continues to get underpriced on every single slate, and it's Acor. I love him. He's probably one of my favorite values of the entire slate just for his price tag. Sush as well, 6,800 is super cheap. And I think the pricing here is probably a little bit more based on their what DraftKings is considering a more difficult matchup, which is fine. Fnatic, we know long-term is really good. But the odds are actually, slightly the smallest margin leading Mad Lions favor here. So I think when you're deciding what side to pick here, I think you're kind of looking at players individually and then also just considering how they fit with the rest of your slate. Like you could play Acor and then potentially still play like Flusha if you wanted here, just because it's so close. But if you want to take a stand on a game, then maybe you take a stand on Mad Lions and you use Sush and you use Acor. And then that really actually helps you build the rest of your lineup with 2 pretty cheap players that are really talented. On Fnatic side, Brawlin is going to be too expensive for me. I'm not really going to be considering him here. Crims, 8,600. I think it's okay. I think when you're used to getting him for 78 or 76, it's hard to just like all of a sudden jump up 1,000 or 800 to pay for somebody. Even though I know that's kind of like not really the mindset that you should always be taking every slate into perspective of its own. But I think when we get the bigger discount on someone like Flusha, I think I would prefer to go to the $7,600 Flusha than pay up for Crims or Brawlin here. JW is always kind of valuable. It just kind of really depends. He's pretty streaky. Give him Train where you can, take out the AWP and do some work, then I like him. But a little bit more risky. I think I prefer Acor for a little bit cheaper, or Sush at 6,800 over JW. For NIP, let's go to the NIP side first. This is where we get super discounted prices here. Yes, they are a sizable underdog relative to the slate, but Knock and Plopsky, 7,200 and 7K is incredible value. If you think that they either perform well in a loss, or maybe they change the tide here and get the monkey and they get the Vitality monkey off their back and take down Vitality. Let's go to the Vitality side. Zaiwu coming in at 10,200, and this is what I mean. Look at the rest of their team. 6,800 is Shocks, the next best player, or the next, highest priced player. So I think both of them are in play. Obviously, I think Zaiwu, just for even at 10,200, you are not looking to hit a multiplier. So we are not looking at, let's say you want 10x is probably too egregious. Say you want 8x. Okay. Well, yes, I think asking for 82 points or 85 points or whatever from Zaiwu is definitely reasonable and definitely attainable for someone like him. But I do think just the raw floor, that he's probably not going to score under 65, and then obviously we know his ceiling, if it's a close competitive game, is 100 or more or whatever. So I think you're taking Zaiwu not because he's the greatest price point per dollar player. I think you're doing it, especially in cash games at least, as just a floor player along with a high ceiling and a really high raw projection regardless of the outcome. So Shocks, I think, is viable. I think people might go back to RPK just because he played so well last match, but it's not really something that I highly suggest, even as a favorite here. They would probably need a 2-0 sweep for him to do pretty well. All right, let's go to our last game, VIG and G2. Big is obviously the bigger underdog here, as they were today against FaZe, but they just played phenomenal against FaZe. And part of it was FaZe looking a little but I mean, you want to watch some really good Counter-Strike. Big did that today, and they looked phenomenal. Tabson at 7,800. I don't really agree that he should be the most expensive player, even though he's been playing really well lately. I do always prefer Searson at 7K is really nice. Again, this would be for me more GPP to use Tabson, Searson, and Zenartes. But I think it's definitely viable if you're going off of recent form. This side is where I really like Kenny S and Hunter at their price tags. Probably the first two guys that will be in my cash game lineup build. And then after that, obviously I'll likely be considering somebody like Zaiwu, and then really starting to look for a couple value plays depending on who I use at captain. And I think Nexa too. I think when you're dealing with G2, a lot of them perform so closely. Hunter has actually been performing better than the other two on a more consistent basis lately. But I think if you're ever just picking two, because their projections are always so relatively close, that you just take the two cheapest players and or whatever one's fit in your lineup. Like obviously Kenny S and Hunter are so close in price that if you have the extra 200 to get to Kenny S and you feel really good about that, that's fine. But I prefer not choosing between Kenny S and Hunter and just playing both of them here. And then really just deciding if Next has somebody else that I'm going to use in a 3-man G2 stack. So that's where I'm at for this slate. Like I said, these matches have been phenomenal to watch from a CSGO perspective. And if you're somebody like me who's not really a real gamer in terms of CSGO, it's still really enjoyable to sweat it out. And you start to learn, the bomb plants, the CT side, the T side. You start to learn those nuances, and then the sweat becomes even better because when your team loses that pistol round, then you're like, oh, well, can't expect anything great for the next 2 rounds. It's probably going to be 3-0 to start this match, or maybe, they get a couple kills and are able to buy up, one weapon. And then, so that economy side is definitely more for the heavy gamers. But as you start continuing to sweat these out and think about it and watch it, then I think it makes the sweat even better. That's just kind of from my perspective. But be on the lookout for some PGA content. PGA is free this week at FSI, so hop on over and get on that. And then it will go behind the paywall once we get back into a regular schedule. TK does a phenomenal job posting core plays for every showdown slate, usually a GPP and a cash core. So if you want to leverage some ownership, he's certainly got you covered. We got NASCAR tomorrow night at FSI. So we have everything you need. Just go to fsidfs.com. Soccer is going to be huge this weekend. So come on over, join our group, and bring in some cash. All right. See you later, guys.